We talked about rivers in a recent video and about all the benefits that they can bring to people. However, rivers could also have a more dangerous side: floods. Floods are actually the most dangerous of all natural disasters. They kill more people than all the other things like earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, and droughts. In the last 100 years, many millions of lives have been lost because of flooding. The power of the water in a flood can cause people to drown and can damage buildings and other structures. Bridges can collapse and roads can be damaged. This makes the rescue effort afterwards very difficult. Emergency services can find it hard to get to the people they want to help. Floods can also damage the power system, which means that things like the water supply and sewage system don't have any electricity. If the sewage system is damaged, this can cause disease to spread in the floodwater. This is actually one of the major causes of death after floods. If the water supply is damaged, people will just drink the water all around them from the flood. But this floodwater can be full of diseases such as typhoid and cholera. Diseases like this spread quicker through the water than through the air. Floods can also do a lot of damage to agriculture. If floodwater flows onto farmland, then the crops might not be able to survive under the water. This means that the farmers will lose their crops for that year. Let's look at how floods happen. The water in rain usually starts out in the seas and oceans. This water gets heated up by the sun and it evaporates. It rises up into the atmosphere and is carried away by the wind. Later on, the water in the clouds cools down and falls as rain. Most of the time, this water falls to earth in normal quantities. Some of the water goes down into the ground and is used by trees and plants, and some of the water flows into a river and then down the river into the sea. However, sometimes there's much more water than there is normally. If the quantity of water is larger than the quantity the ground can absorb, or larger than a river can hold, there will be a flood. This large amount of water usually comes from a large storm where rainfall is much higher than usual. However, although these storms might be random and unpredictable, there are some floods that happen in a regular, predictable way. The most famous of these is with the Nile in Egypt. For much of Egyptian history, this flood was not seen as a bad thing, but as a good one. It made the land around the river very fertile and was very helpful for Egyptian agriculture. Today, a large dam has been built on the river to help control the flow of the water. While dams are usually very successful at this, they can also cause floods themselves. A dam is built to hold a certain amount of water. It collects the water behind it in a reservoir. However, sometimes the water in the reservoir becomes too heavy for the dam to hold, and the dam breaks. This can cause an enormous quantity of water to flow down the river, causing a huge flood. When a flood happens so quickly that people have no time to react, it's called a flash flood. Floods most often happen because of high levels of rain, and less often because of dams breaking. But they can also happen for other reasons. One way is that when winter is over and spring comes, a lot of the snow and ice can melt. This snow and ice, which is usually up high in mountains, can melt and flow downhill, causing a flood. Whatever the cause of the high quantity of water, there is another factor that decides how bad the flood will be, and this is the type of land the water is on. Most of the time, the ground is quite good at absorbing a lot of the water. But humans can sometimes interfere with this such as when we build cities and cover the ground with concrete and roads. There's no way for water to get into the ground if there's a lot of concrete around, so cities can be some of the most dangerous places for floods. Some places, like LA in America, have built a series of pipes to take water away from the city, to places where the water can be absorbed by the ground. Like with other natural disasters, scientists are trying to work out ways of predicting floods and ways of protecting people against them. But they are still the most dangerous natural disaster there is.